All right, gentlemen, we're going to begin this evening. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you so much to PCN for helping us put together this event tonight for two of the candidates for Pennsylvania governor. I'm Susan Carty, the president of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. On behalf of our members across the state, I extend a very sincere thank you to PCN, also to North Penn VFW, and to this evening's candidates and their families. Tonight we will be hearing from two candidates for governor of Pennsylvania. They are Paul Glover, representing the Green Party, and Ken Krawchuk, representing the Libertarian Party. The governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the head of the executive branch and also the highest state office in Pennsylvania. The governor is popularly elected every 4 years and is limited to 2 consecutive terms. He or she can also serve and does serve as the commander-in-chief of the state's military forces. Running for office is no easy task. It takes commitment, dedication, sacrifice, and strong belief in our system of government in Pennsylvania, as well as the belief in Pennsylvania voters. The League of Women Voters is proud to be able to provide this evening's opportunity. And now I would like to introduce this evening's moderator, Francine Schertzer, Vice President of Programming for PCN.
Thank you, Susan, and a big thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting PCN to moderate and for hosting this evening's event. Tonight's event is available at PCNTV.com, and it will air on PCN TV Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Earlier today, the candidates flipped a coin to determine who would go first. Candidates will be given an opportunity to make introductory statements. Questions are being provided by the League of Women Voters. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond to a question. Rebuttals will not be permitted. However, candidates will be given an opportunity at the end of tonight's forum to clarify their answers with a closing statement. The League of Women Voters will time the candidates' responses to help keep us on track. So without further ado, I'd like to begin to give our candidates an opportunity to provide some introductory statements. Ken Krawchuk, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and PCN for being here tonight. Very briefly, my name is Ken Krawchuk. I just turned 65, born and raised in a row home in North Philadelphia. Still married to my first wife, Roberta, after 41 years. We have 3 lovely daughters and 3 grandkids so far. Professionally, I'm an information technology entrepreneur, and I hold 3 United States patents related to database theory that I would love to use to untangle Pennsylvania's government. So I'm a family man, businessman, inventor, but most importantly, I'm a libertarian. We libertarians are different from the 2 old parties because we are the party of principle. Every law we support, every law we oppose can all be traced back to one central idea. The idea that your life is yours, that your property is yours, that you have the inalienable right to live your life your way without interference, provided only you respect the rights and property of others. That's it. That's what it means to be a libertarian. Your life, your way. And the public has reacted very strongly to this message. Since our founding in 1971, we have grown to become the 3rd largest party, hands down, outnumbering all the other third parties put together. The theme of my campaign this year is death and taxes, a line that I stole from Pennsylvania's most famous citizen, Benjamin Franklin. Death and taxes too high in Pennsylvania. Whether it's taxes because they've been going up at more than 3 times the rate of inflation on average for over 50 years, no matter whether it's a Democrat or Republican in office. There's also too much death, whether it's from the opioid crisis, at the hands of some of these cowboy cops we seem to have, or people who just seem to fall through the safety net. It's my goal as the death and taxes candidate to reduce both as much as humanly possible. So I'm asking you, please vote for me, Ken Krawchuk, Libertarian for Pennsylvania Governor.
Thank you. Now, Ken Krawchuk was the winner of the coin toss, so he'll have the first opportunity to answer the first question. And the question is, what do you believe to be the most important problem Pennsylvania is experiencing, and how will you tackle that problem?
The most important problem? There are so many problems in Pennsylvania, we could begin almost anywhere. But the one I want to begin with is the opioid crisis. Because every 2.5 hours, another Pennsylvanian dies from this scourge. And it continues to get worse. But if I told you there's a way that we could reduce opioid use by 75% and reduce opioid deaths by 85%, would you be interested?
Yeah.
Yes. These aren't some pie-in-the-sky numbers. These are the numbers reported by the Portuguese Health Ministry. In 2001, they took a different route than we are here in America towards their drug war. They took a more compassionate route, a counterintuitive route. What they did is they decriminalized all drugs, including opioids. Most opioid deaths come from one of two causes. Virtually all of them are accidental. Main reason is because of street drugs. They're impure. You don't know what you're getting. So when you take it, terrible things can happen. The other cause is that when you mix opioids with commonly available substances, it could be deadly. So what Portugal did is they attacked these twin troubles, first of all, by instituting free drug purity testing. So if somebody picks up some opioids in the street, they take them to the testing center, and they can say, oh, watch out, that's fentanyl, be careful. Oh, wait, that's coffee mate, you better get your money back. So they ended all of those deaths that way. But the accidental deaths by mixing them, every person who uses those drugs gets a free social worker to advise them of these things. So they've been able to eliminate all these accidental deaths. When I'm governor, I pledge I will end the war on drugs in Pennsylvania. I plan to pardon every single nonviolent drug offender. These people need help. We should treat it as a social problem, not a criminal problem.
Our next question, the Pennsylvania Constitution includes an environmental amendment. Article 1, Section 27 reads, the people have a right to clean air and pure water and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, aesthetic values of the environment. What do you see as an immediate short-term action, as well as long-term effort that could help to provide these environmental guarantees to Pennsylvania residents? Thank you, Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, because I'm a huge fan of the Pennsylvania Constitution. I never leave home without it. I consider this my job description, and I quote from it constantly. My brother says I sound like a Jehovah's Witness quoting from the Bible, and I have Jehovah's Witnesses relatives, and they agree. But when it comes to the environment, again, you couldn't ask a better person. I spend a lot of time camping. In fact, when I go on my statewide tours around the state, my wife and I go camping all the time. We'll be leaving tomorrow morning for another, and we'll be staying at Ohio Pile State Park and several others. In fact, my wife and I met on a camping trip. So I have very near and dear to my heart taking care of the environment. There's one easy thing we can do, which could take care of a whole multitude of environmental sins, and that's to change the law for how we treat pollution. What I would suggest is that we treat it instead as a trespass. So if somebody's stuff is blowing, leaking, drifting, shining, or whatever on your property, they're trespassing. And you would have all the remedies available to fight trespassers to get them to get their mess off. So you could get court injunctions, police action, you could garner their salaries, whatever it may be, to get them to clean up their mess. And this would work against a whole host of problems, whether it's something simple like a light shining in your window at night, or frackers leaking stuff into the environment, or even coal blowing in from coal refineries, not refineries, power plants, blowing into your area. Just take care of all of those different areas by treating pollution as a trespass. Right now, it's insane the way we have it. You can actually buy the right to pollute. Cut me a break. You should not be able to buy the right to pollute. When I'm governor, I will work to have pollution reclassified as a trespass, and we're going to get those trespassers to get their junk off our property. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question now. What is your position regarding Pennsylvania's method used for funding its public education system? What actions would you recommend to change and to improve upon that funding system? Mr. Krawchuk.
Geez, I have a couple things I would do for education. That's another good one. First thing I would do is, well, let's look at Abington Township. We're in Abington right here. I contacted all the local schools, looked them up on the web, and I found that on average, the schools here charge about $9,000 a semester. I then took the Abington school budget, divided it by the number of students. Guess how much it costs per kid? About $20,000. If we privatized the schools instead of running these Taj Mahals, we could cut property taxes in half overnight and give kids a quality private school education. That's half the solution. The other half is to introduce competition. Right now, 90% of the kids all go to the same school system, the government school system. And like most monopolies, choice is low, quality is not the best, costs are high. I would introduce competition by allowing parents to choose any government school for their child, and the funding which would have gone to their local school will follow the child to the school of the parent's choice. That way good schools get more funding and grow, and the bad schools will be shut down. Now, of course, the good schools can't hold all those kids, so they could take over the failed school and use the same winning techniques to improve education. So for the same educational dollar, we can improve education. And not improve, in my opinion, or the unelected Board of Education in Harrisburg, not in their opinion. I'm talking about the opinion of the people who matter most, the parents. I'm a huge fan of parental choice and privatizing the schools.
Discuss briefly your vision for Pennsylvania's infrastructure needs, as well as future plans to repair and replace where needed. Right there, Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Francine, you're coming up with a bunch of great questions. Infrastructure, like everything else, has a lot of angles to it. Let's start off with one of the most neglected in Pennsylvania, our highways and bridges. I can't tell you how many potholes I ran over just coming over here, and I don't live that far away. Constitution, my job description, Article 8, Section 11, authorizes the gas tax. It says that the gas tax should be used exclusively for the construction and maintenance of highways and bridges. Well, guess what? It's not used exclusively for the maintenance and construction of highways and bridges. No wonder we're having so much trouble with our highways. They use it for educational purposes. They use it for mass transit. They use it for all sorts of things against the Constitution. One of the powers granted to the governor by the Constitution is the power of the line item veto. I plan to use that aggressively to go through the budget and cross out everything that is unconstitutional, pork barrel, special interest spending, and eliminate it line after line after line. Gone, gone, gone. And use the gas tax money exclusively for the constitutional purpose it was made for. Bridges, highways, construction and maintenance. Now there are other angles of the infrastructure we could talk about as well. One of my favorites is solar energy. Because there are companies out there right now which will put solar panels on your roof for free. You can buy the electricity that they make cheaper than what you can get from the local utilities, and you're helping the environment. Now, full disclosure, I'm shareholders in Tesla, Solar City, Exxon, Philadelphia Electric, and a few other energy companies. But we can relieve ourselves of all these different fossil fuels and save money at the same time. And there are other infrastructure angles I could talk about too, but I see my time is up.
Moving on. Focusing on equal pay, a point can be made that women are the single largest productive economic force. They drive almost every economic indicator for business. Based on statistics from 2016, women collectively represent the second largest economy in the world. Recently, the governor signed an executive order that called for equal pay for employees of the Commonwealth. What can be done to further extend that adjustment in our state of Pennsylvania to secure equal pay for all workers? Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Everybody likes to get paid. Everybody likes to get their equal pay. But you know, there's a flip side to that. And that's having the Commonwealth come in and start micromanaging your company. As a libertarian, I believe you have the right to live your life your way without interference, provided only you respect the rights and property of others. So that means as governor, I would not come in and tell you how to run your business. Two people come together, they decide for themselves what is a proper wage. For me to stand in the middle of that, that's right out of communist Russia. This is what you will pay this person. This is what you won't pay that person. There's no way that you can compare the abilities of two people. No two people are alike. So if you take a one-size-fits-none solution and then impose it upon businesses, I can only see that the same thing is going to happen to Pennsylvania's economy, what happened to other economies around the world under communistic-type policies. We're going to see fewer jobs, fewer opportunities. Instead, I champion the free market. The free market is the best arbiter of goods and services ever devised by humans. Because if there's a shortage of something, people rush in to fill that need. If there's too many of something, people just as quickly rush out. So if you step up and start dictating how the free market's going to work, you just lost the first word of that. It's no longer the free market, it's now a government market. I stand against the government taking over the free marketplace. I stand against these mandates that tell you how to run your private life that tell businesses how to run their business. I mean, it's been tried before. It has never worked. It's not going to work now. If there are any plans, anything in the budget, any laws that come across that are trying to dictate to the businesses or people of Pennsylvania how they should live their private lives, I promise you I will veto them. Thank you.
As Governor of Pennsylvania, you would be in office during the next census. Following that census comes the opportunity to redraw our state's congressional maps. What would you recommend to ensure a fair and balanced process for drawing those maps? Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. There's no question we have a problem with how redistricting is done. I mean, you just have to look at any of these maps, even so much the one that was just drawn up by the judges. It's clear that we need to come up with a different approach. But let me tell you, it's going to be a long, difficult road because that process is enshrined in the Constitution. And it's going to take 2 successive houses, has to go through a re-election, before they can even post this, a change of the Constitution to the voters. So it's going to be at least 4 or 5 years off before we can do anything about it. That said, what should we do? It's obvious what we should do. Get it out of the hands of the politicians. We should, thank you. What we should do is have a private group of people, you and me, just regular folk who get together, somebody who has never served in public office, somebody who's never run for public office, somebody who's not an attorney, somebody who's not worked on a campaign. I mean, I would have as innocent a person as possible sit down and do that. I would also look at a lot of the mathematical tools, because you can play games. I was at a radio station, WITF, the public station in Harrisburg, and they had a little quiz where they had like different colored dots, and they said, there are 6 examples. They say, all right, group things such that the yellow dots get the most votes. It is amazing the games that can be played. Computers could play those games. We could take those same games and turn it around the other way and say, do this so that things come out even. One of the big downsides of the redistricting process we have now is that they group all of one group of people or another group of people together. What that means is it's the death of the moderates. The middle group is now missing because they've redistricted to the point where they don't exist anymore. It's like getting rid of the middle class. We should redo it. It's a long road to hoe, but I'm fully in favor of turning it back over to we the people.
What area of Pennsylvania government would you consider to be most immediate need of reform and why? And some of the examples include employment, education, the environment, healthcare, or perhaps transportation. Mr. Krawchuk.
I guess the answer is yes. All of those areas. I've already addressed several of them. I already talked about transportation. I already talked about education. Good grief. One thing that's really missing, I mentioned in the beginning that I hold 3 United States patents related to database theory. What I do professionally is I call myself a business architect. What I'll do is I'll go into a business and I will look at all of the individual independent pieces of their business and how those pieces talk to each other. That's called a business architecture. What that does is that allows high-level people to actually see what their company is doing. And you can take each piece and drill down and say, what is this piece doing? And then use the same process. What are the independent pieces inside of this piece? So you can take the entire business and take it apart piece by piece, spot the duplication, spot the waste, spot the problems, and then start moving pieces around. Throw away the extra ones that no longer be there. This is what a business architect does. This is what I do professionally. This is what my 3 United States patents are based upon, the ability to do this. And I've been using some very high-powered customers, I can't mention them publicly, who are using this process to improve their companies. It is my goal, it is my dream to use these same techniques on Pennsylvania. To take my job description, outline all the independent pieces of it, all of the interfaces between them, and then price out each one to find out what they cost, what they're doing. Get rid of the duplication, spot the special interests, get rid of them, like the $400 million a year that we give to the horse racing industry of all people. People don't know this. One of the beauties of a business architecture is that it's easy to understand. I could teach it to you with only a minute or two's worth of education. Very simple. This is the main problem facing Pennsylvania. People do not know how our government works. They don't know what the government does. And I dare say none of our legislators do either. When I get in as governor, I'm going to build a business architecture of Pennsylvania and reform our government.
Issues facing prisons is a topic of focus not only at the state level, but also the federal level. Two immediate areas of concern are the problems with re-entry into the system and with employment and housing upon release. Discuss your concerns and suggestions for improvement upon one of these two concerns. Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Like a lot of your other questions, this one has a lot of angles that could be taken. Because there are some people who should not be in prison, no question, and there are some people who definitely should be in prison. Let me take those one at a time. The Commonwealth Foundation did a study a number of years ago, and they found that 95% of all crimes are committed by only 5% of the criminals. Personally, I think it's insane that we let these people out of prison before their term has been served, especially after we finally get them in jail through our convoluted criminal justice system. Using the powers granted to the governor by the Constitution, I can reduce the crime rate in Pennsylvania very easily by eliminating parole for violent criminals. Like I said, it's crazy to let these people out. When I'm governor, I'm going to make sure that they serve every day of their sentence. Now, of course, there are some people who shouldn't be there, some people who are wrongly convicted, and there's certainly one-on-one cases where the people, we should look at those cases one-on-one. But there's a whole class of people in prison right now who clearly don't belong there. And I'm talking about nonviolent drug users. I already talked about how we've taken a social problem and made it a criminal problem. It has started to fill up our prisons. And in fact, under prison caps on our overcrowded prisons, it's reached the point now where they're releasing murderers and rapists to make room for pot-smoking Grateful Dead fans. That's insane. When I'm governor of Pennsylvania, I'm going to end the drug war. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the power of the pardon, commuting sentences, and whatever I can to get these people out of prison immediately. Last number I looked at, it's almost 20% of Pennsylvania's prison population are there for nonviolent drug offenders. Now, of course, if they dealt drugs with kids or robbed from somebody or stole from somebody, but if they were just kicking back, smoking a joint, watching The Simpsons, they've got to get out of jail free card from this governor. Thank you.
The Pennsylvania Department of Health has found that children in 18 cities across Pennsylvania tested positive for lead at higher levels than children in Flint, Michigan. These 18 cities include Allentown, Altoona, Bethlehem, Erie, Harrisburg, Johnstown, Philadelphia, Reading, and Scranton. The damaging neurological effects of lead exposure, particularly among children, have been well documented in medical literature. How would your administration tackle the challenge of identifying and replacing water service lines and well pumps containing lead across the Commonwealth, and how would you propose to pay for your plan? Mr. Krawchuk.
Interesting question. Again, it comes down to how do we get this problem? Now, as I was coming over here, I was complaining about the potholes earlier. Do you know who created a lot of those potholes? Aqua America, the water company. Now, I'm a shareholder, full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in Aqua America. I shouldn't be bashing them, but the thing is, they're a private company. And they are right now in the process of doing that very changeover that you're talking about. Most of Pennsylvania is run by private water companies. American Water, who was one of my clients at one point a number of years ago. Same thing. These people care very deeply and honestly for the communities that they serve. And one by one, they're acquiring these old systems. Then they're putting in the new infrastructure, which is why Abington Township has been dug up for the last, well, I don't know what, 5 years now, I guess. They're replacing it all. They're doing it without a dime of taxpayer money. This is the way we should be looking at it, replacing all of these pipes one by bringing in more of this private industry. Because I remember we had a big drought in 1999. Some of you may remember that. It was really tough. And I remember the city of Baltimore was 30 days away from running out of water. And somebody came to Aqua America and said, how about you guys? And they said, well, if it doesn't rain at all, we're good from now, which was July, we're good until March. This is what the private sector does, because they have to answer to their shareholders. They have to answer to their customers. And if people don't, if these companies don't cater to their customers, customers are going to go elsewhere. Now, of course, Pennsylvania has made it a monopoly in certain areas. I would encourage more competition, not only in schools, not only with businesses, but also when it comes to infrastructure projects like that. Because we're getting free water pipes put in here in Pennsylvania, and when they came in to do mine, They broke the main shut-off valve and they replaced that for free. I'm in favor of that sort of approach.
Discuss your view and vision for the future of healthcare opportunity in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Here's another question that comes right up my alley. I held a Pennsylvania insurance agent license for over a dozen years. I just let it lapse back in 2016, about 2 years ago. Not that I was selling insurance, I used it in information technology. I did a lot of work in the pharma business and the insurance business and everything. It would make my company bubble to the top because we had the experience to do it. I could tell you, I know a lot about what's going on in the insurance industry, and I could say without any fear of contradiction that Obamacare has been an unmitigated disaster in Pennsylvania. I've had private insurance since the 80s when I first opened up my company. And my premiums back then were pretty steady, about $400 a month for wife and me and the family, until Obamacare came. Quadrupled. Up 4 times, 5 times as much, almost 5 times as much. Priced me out of the market. Terrible. The insurance company can't put up with this constant changing of the rules. I worked on an actuarial system. These guys are pulling their hair out, trying to figure out what to do next. They're looking 20, 50, 100 years in the future. Oh, let's change the rules again today. Oh, let's change them again tomorrow. Fortunately, there's a solution. Something called health share accounts. Health share organizations, what they do is they're like mutual insurance companies. They insure each other. It's not really insurance, because what they do is they pay each other's medical bills. And you don't have a premium. What you do is you donate a standard amount every month. And do you know how much that standard amount is to cover my wife and the family? It's the same as I used to pay back in the 80s. This is what we should do. We should have more health share accounts. They are legal under Obamacare. But you know there are some in Pennsylvania that Pennsylvania won't let them have it. Liberty Health Share comes to mind. It's probably one of the best ones in my opinion. But the law says no, you can't deal in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania can't have affordable health care. And when I'm governor of Pennsylvania, I will work to make sure people are aware of health shares and to make them legal in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. What is your understanding of the funding of our state police budget, and what steps would need to be taken to fund that budget adequately? Mr. Krawchuk.
Ooh. State police, police in general, just law enforcement is probably, I think it's maybe the 4th largest, 3rd or 4th largest piece of the budget. But you know, I'm not sure we're getting really what we're paying for. I'm a graduate of the Abington Citizens Police Academy, and I have seen firsthand how things work, what's being paid for. And a lot of things I see happening in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't want to pay for no matter what you would say. I'm sure you heard about in East Pittsburgh, about the cop. He pulled over a car, 17-year-old got out of the back seat and started running. The cop pulled out his gun and pow, 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 killed the kid on the spot. Maybe you heard about the guy over here in Berks County near Reading, commandeered a bulldozer from a Fish and Game Commission person, and then ran over some guy who wasn't even a suspect for anything. The guy was out there in the woods, killed him. There's a guy in Lancaster, guy's in handcuffs, sit on the curb, cop tasers him in the back. I mean, there's so many examples of this over and over and over again. And in every case, I predicted when it happened, and it happened, that these cops are exonerated. Do you know why? Because they're following the law. The law says that they're allowed to use deadly force to effect the arrest. So they can do it that way. I'm going to arrest this kid. Pow, pow, pow. Oh, gee, I killed him. What a shame. Oh, I'm exonerated. What I would do is I would change that law so it doesn't say use force to effect the arrest, but rather the only time you can use deadly force is to save other lives. We should rein in how these cops are acting. The funding, I guess I wouldn't touch too much, except for one area which we'll probably talk about later on DUI checkpoints. I hope we're going to talk about that. But generally speaking, we got to rein in these cowboy cops, and the way to do that is to change the law to allow them to use deadly force only in the case of saving lives.
Yes, indeed.
This is our last chance to hear from our candidates for tonight's forum. This is your opportunity to return to one of the questions or topics that you would like to clarify and or emphasize as significant to you. You both do not have to address the same issue. Mr. Krawchuk.
Thank you. Well, one thing I'm surprised it didn't come up is gun violence. Everybody's been paying attention to it lately. I don't know about you, I'm tired of hearing about dead children on the 6 o'clock news. The question becomes, what do we do about it? But before you know what to do, you have to know what the causes are. President Obama commissioned the Center for Disease Control, CDC, to look into the issue. CDC found several things that were pretty surprising. They found that anti-gun laws, there's no evidence that they prevent gun violence. Laws to stop people from carrying, no evidence that they prevent gun violence. Background checks, no evidence that they prevent gun violence. All these different feel-good legislations, like the one that just got passed a few weeks ago, none of them address the causes, according to the CDC. Several other things that they found. And one of the most important is they found that guns are used defensively much more frequently than they're used offensively. In other words, guns save lives. John Lott, a researcher at the University of Chicago, did a county-level nationwide study. And he found that something that we've known since the 70s, I remember hearing it way back then. If a woman resists an attacker, she's twice as likely to be seriously injured. But he found that if she resists with a handgun, she is half as likely to be seriously injured. From that, I draw the conclusion that handguns are a girl's best friend, and that gun control kills. Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution says the right of the citizen to bear arms shall not be questioned. I have no question what that means. The right of the citizen to bear arms, I will defend it as best I can as governor of Pennsylvania, because gun control kills.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And how about a round of applause for our candidates this evening? Once again, I'd like to thank the League One voters for sponsoring tonight's event. Without further ado, I'd like to turn the mic back over to Susan Hardy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. We all worked to put this together, and I think it was very informative. And I had a wonderful time making up those questions.
You man, woman.
We are extremely grateful for your participation, for PCN's participation, and also for our own opportunity to be part of this. So all I can say to those in the audience is stand up, show up, make your voice heard. Please go vote. It's extremely important. It's your opportunity. Thank you so much.
Amen.